Alright, so today's Speed Duel deck will be centered around the Dragon CALLER skill card. Basically, the skill, it's found in the Seto Kaiba structure deck. It says once per duel you can use one of the following skills. You can successfully summon Lord of D to add the Flute of Summoning Dragon to your hand, or reveal the Flute of Summoning Dragon in your hand and add Lord of D from your deck to your hand. So, a really powerful skill if you pair it with extremely powerful dragons and Lord of D. So today we'll be looking at the deck breakdown, and it's also probably the most consistent deck, and we'll get into the statistics and probability later on in the video. So the first monster in the deck is going to be 3 copies of Blue Eyes White Dragon. Obviously the kind of namesake and boss monster of most of Kaiba's decks, but it's just a very strong monster, especially in this format. With 3,000 attack, getting it on the field, it's hard for just about any monster to get over. There's only a few monsters, which I think are all fusion monsters except for one, who can actually just get over this without any sort of equipments or taking this guy down a little bit. So that's definitely key to have in the deck, is 3 of those. Next, the second most powerful dragon will be Tyrant Dragon, and not only does he have 2,900 attack and 2,500 defense, so definitely a heavy hitter in that regard, but his effect is pretty great. So basically, if your opponent controls monster after their first attack of this card, it can make a second attack. So if they have 2 monsters on the field, you can, with this one card in one battle phase, just kill both of them. Another really good part about this card is that if they had 2 monsters, you could attack both of them, and if you had any other monsters on your side of the field, you can just directly attack with those monsters as well. So it's really good at wiping the field just with this, using this one guy, and then possibly hitting for a direct attack, and usually that's enough. I mean, if you attack over 2 monsters and you have one direct attack of, say, a little under 2,000 with another monster, I mean, that's probably going to be enough to take out the 4,000 life points if they still have that much at this point. But the second effect is also really noteworthy. It allows you to negate any trap effects that target this card on the field, and then if you do, destroy it. So some of the classic traps, such as Mishizure, where you'll flip it, and then if a monster gets sent to the graveyard, you can pop a monster on the field, but that targets. So basically, if they were to do that and they didn't know this effect, they would just burn a Mishizure trying to target this card. And you can't be special summoned from the graveyard without tributing a dragon monster, but fortunately that is almost never the case as of currently. I mean, you're never going to be really special summoning this guy from the graveyard. It's only special summoned really from the hand. That's the strategy of the deck. So next, another key player in the whole Flute of Summoning Dragon strategy is Lord of D. So not only is Lord of D just a decent monster, 1,200 attack, 100 defense, not the worst thing to have on the field, but its effect is also pretty great, that once it's on the field, that neither player can target dragon monsters on the field with card effects. So that also just adds another layer of protection to your dragon monsters. So basically, the whole strategy of this deck is to get a Lord of D on the field, and then have 2 of these boss monsters, either a Blue Eyes or a Tyrant, in your hand, and then use Flute to summon both of them immediately. And another key player is this Flute of Summoning Dragon, so we'll be playing 3 copies of that. And basically just from your hand, you can summon up to 2 dragon monsters if you have Lord of D on the field. So how it works is that basically, I mean, you want to draw first turn preferably into Lord of D or Flute and as many dragon monsters as you can. And so how the skill comes into play is that this skill lets you just draw one Lord of D or the Flute and then get the other one. So that's all you're really focused on, is getting one of the pieces, and then you can just get Blue Eyes and Tyrant ideally on the field. So that really makes it quite easy to get a field of 3 monsters and possibly some back row on your first turn. So another card that actually just came out in the latest structure deck is Summoner's Art, and it allows you to add one level 5 or higher normal monster from your deck to your hand. So it's a really good consistency booster because basically if you happen to draw, say, a Lord of D or a Flute and you didn't draw any monsters, you can just play Summoner's Art, or maybe you even happen to head 2 in your hand, and just add the Blue Eyes from your deck to your hand. So that just right there immediately makes it extremely easy to get all the combo pieces. And now the traps that I think are really good. The first one is Champion's Vigilance. And what this does is if you have a level 7 or higher normal monster, so that would in this case only be Blue Eyes, you can basically just pop a monster if it's going to be summoned, or if a spell trap card is activated. So it's really powerful. The only thing is that you need to have Blue Eyes on the field. Tyrant won't actually do the job because it's not normal. So that's why some people opt for playing Red Eyes in the deck. But I just think Tyrant is such a powerful card, having all of those effects and having 2900 attack. I mean, it's just objectively stronger than Red Eyes. So I think this card does take like a secondary role to the deck building, but I think it's a great addition. And onto the final 2 traps of the deck. For this deck, I opted to add Kunai with Chain, and this is probably one of the strongest traps right now. You can basically, it's like a mini Windstorm of Atakwa, where you can switch a monster who is attacking into defense mode. And the other benefit, though, is you can equip this card to a target on the field, and it gains 500 attack. And that's a really, really powerful thing, because basically if you can really turn the tides if your opponent is attacking with a monster that can just get over your monster by about 300 or 400 or something like that, and then you switch them into defense mode, all of a sudden you have 500 more attack, and you're basically ready to go, and you're ready to just wipe their field pretty much with an even more powerful monster. And I mean, that can really even get Lord of D at 1200 into a position at 1700 attack, where that can really do a lot of damage and really destroy a lot of monsters. A lot of defense right now are below 2000, so that's definitely a lot of potential. But I think right in this deck that the trap cards are really where you can kind of move around. I think that these 5 cards are really hard to switch out for something better that really is as consistent and really is as effective. But the trap cards, I think, really good to just I think add a lot of trap cards into your side deck. Basically, Windstorm would be a really good one, and there's a few other ones that maybe even a Wild Tornado that would really, or a Dust Tornado that would really kind of mix it up, and your opponent really wouldn't know what to hit. I mean, if you come out with Wild Tornado and then they kind of get scared to take out your back row, and then you can just side deck it out and then put in something like Kunai, and then they won't hit it, and then they'll just attack, and there you go. So basically, it's all kind of mind games, I think, when it comes down to the traps. And then so there's the skill card. So I think this is basically the deck that has been doing a lot ever since it came out. And so now time for the fun part, talking about the math of the deck and the probability of drawing such cards. So the basic combo is going to rely on pretty much drawing one of these cards, one of Blue Eyes, Tyrant, or the Summoner's Art, because you can just use that to get a Blue Eyes, and drawing one of these cards, Lord of D or a Flute, because if you draw one of them, you can use your skill to get the other one. So the entire basic combo needs 3 cards, so you need a Flute, a Lord of D, and then a Dragon. And the chances of drawing just one of these and one of these off of an opening hand is 72.63%, which is actually pretty high, just to start off with. The chances of drawing 2 dragons and one of these, such that you can play Lord of D and summon like a Tyrant and a Blue Eyes, which is definitely the optimal strategy here, it's 43.84%. So just under half the time you're going to be able to right off the bat summon it on your first turn, and there's really not much your opponent can do at this point. So that's pretty good, but where it really gets good is if you go second, which I think going second is probably the most optimal strategy for this deck. It takes it to an 84.11% chance that you'll draw one of these and one of these and be able to get the other one of these using your skill. And it's still at a 65.25% chance that you'll draw two of your dragons or your summoner's art, and then have one of these pieces to be able to complete your combo. So it's really, really huge that that this deck, the consistency and the ability to just pump out these monsters is really crazy. I mean, it's really hard first turn to deal with a Blue Eyes, a Tyrant, and a Lord of D on the field. And there's always that chance that you do have that back row too, depends on what you draw. But I mean, a great hand would be one of these, two of these, and a trap, right? So you could set something. So, I mean, if you're able to set a Champion's Vigilance or a Kunai with Chain first turn, or even if you get a nuts hand and second turn, you can draw into two of these traps and get two dragons on the field also. That would just be so much to deal with. And the thing is that these monsters are so powerful that you don't give your opponent much time to deal with it. Basically, once you get to your second turn and you can start attacking, you're probably going to wipe them out that turn, if not have a little life points to get rid of on your third turn. So pretty much in 2 to 3 turns you can win with this deck. The only trouble is that when you do brick with this deck, it's really hard. I mean, if you were to draw into any multiple copies of Champion's Vigilance and then multiple copies of Kunai, or if you just drew into a couple dragons, a summoner's art, and a trap, I mean, there's not much you can do at that point because you don't have your playmakers, which are Lord D or the Flute. And I mean, even with the skill letting you get the other one, I mean, you still need one. So that's really the only downfall of the deck. There's not many cards like Warrior Elimination or anything like that. I mean, you don't even have to worry about. There's not many cards that really pose a huge threat to this deck right off the get-go. The only things that, I mean, you really have to worry about are just really you bricking and then the other person being very, very consistent in terms of being able to get Harpies or Amazonas on the field in a very, very consistent way where it kind of starts to lock you out and break down your strategy. But other than that, I mean, you have such high odds, I mean, pretty much above 50% chance across the board, that it's really tough to kind of mess up and brick and really not be able to play. So I think this deck is probably, in my opinion, still tier 1. There's a lot of other good decks out there that we'll get to, but I think this has always been the tested and true deck that has started the format. It still is pretty good. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and please stay tuned for more Yu-Gi-Oh! Speed Duel's deck profiles.